My husband cheated on me with the woman who helped me during my pregnancy. The story you are going to hear tonight honestly left me completely destroyed. Because there are betrayals that come from enemies, and in a way, you can expect them. But there are others that come from the people you embraced, from the people you opened the door of your house to. And I sincerely believe those are the worst. Carolina writes to us, and it goes like this. Carolina's story, a betrayal disguised as kindness. I never thought I would end up feeling disgusted every time I look at photos of my pregnancy, because it was supposed to be the happiest stage of my life, and it ended up becoming the most humiliating memory I have. My name is Carolina, I am 33 years old, and for a long time, I thought I had the perfect marriage. My husband's name is Diego. We had been together for 8 years, and sincerely, I trusted him completely. I was never a jealous woman. I never checked phones. I never made scenes. Because honestly, I believed that when a person loves you, they simply don't destroy you. My God, how wrong I was. A difficult pregnancy and a helping hand. When I became pregnant with our daughter, everything changed drastically. It was a complicated pregnancy. Very complicated. I had horrible nausea, high blood pressure, and massive exhaustion. Honestly, there were moments where I could barely get out of bed. Diego worked a lot, and even though he tried to help, honestly, I needed more support. That was when Natalia appeared. Natalia was a co-worker of Diego's. I already knew her a bit. We had crossed paths at company dinners, birthdays, and events. Sincerely, she always seemed charming to me, very kind, very sweet, the kind of woman who quickly earns your trust. When Diego mentioned to her that my pregnancy was being difficult, Natalia started helping out a lot, too much. She brought food, accompanied me to appointments, and helped me clean. She even stayed with me some afternoons when Diego worked late. And honestly, I was grateful, so grateful, because I felt vulnerable, exhausted, and scared. Natalia seemed genuinely concerned about me. I remember I even cried while hugging her once. I told her, I don't know what I would do without you. It still makes me feel ashamed to remember that, because I never imagined what was happening behind my back. Becoming part of the family. Over time, Natalia became part of our lives. She came to the house constantly. She cooked, played with our dog, and talked a lot with Diego. Honestly, I saw that as normal because I considered her a friend, a real friend. Now I understand that the most dangerous people don't always look dangerous. Everything started to feel strange after the birth of my daughter. I was emotionally destroyed, very destroyed. I had postpartum depression. I wasn't sleeping. I cried constantly. And honestly, I felt like I was completely losing myself. Meanwhile, Natalia kept showing up constantly. Sincerely, there were moments where she seemed more comfortable in my house than I was. But again, my brain never wanted to suspect anything. Because you don't suspect the woman who held your hand during a difficult pregnancy. Or at least I didn't. The emotional distance. Over time, Diego began to pull away emotionally. A lot. He said he was tired, stressed, that the baby had changed everything. And honestly, I blamed myself because I felt exhausted, neglected, and insecure. My body had changed so much, and honestly, I think that was one of the most vulnerable stages of my life. Meanwhile, Natalia was still there, perfect, put together, available, and always smiling. Now I understand something horrible. She was seeing exactly where my wounds were, and so was he. There were small details that now haunt me, looks, silences, messages that were quickly deleted. But sincerely, I was too emotionally destroyed to connect the dots. Once I even found Diego and Natalia laughing in the kitchen while I was crying in the bedroom trying to put the baby to sleep. Honestly, I remember feeling a horrible sadness, as if they were continuing to live normally while I was sinking. But I never imagined the truth. The scene in the kitchen. Everything exploded 6 months ago. And honestly, I think a part of me died that day. Natalia came over to the house, supposedly to help me because Diego would be working late. My daughter was asleep, and I decided to lie down for a bit because I had a migraine. But I woke up because I heard voices downstairs, low voices, laughter. Something inside me immediately felt strange. I walked slowly down the stairs, and when I reached the kitchen, I saw something I will never forget. Diego was kissing Natalia in our kitchen, the very same kitchen where she used to make me soup when I was pregnant. I felt the world stop. Literally. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember crying right away. I only remember the silence because my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. Natalia was the first to react. She pulled away immediately and started to cry. But honestly, seeing her cry produced an indescribable rage in me, because in that moment, I understood something horrible. The woman I saw as my support system had been sleeping with my husband for months, in my house, while I was going through the most vulnerable stage of my life. Nearly a year, I asked him how long this had been going on. And honestly, I think I should have never asked that question, because the answer destroyed me. Nearly a year, practically since the final months of my pregnancy, while I was vomiting, while I was crying, while I was terrified of losing my baby. They were starting a relationship. I cannot explain to you the level of humiliation I felt, because it wasn't just an infidelity, it was emotional betrayal, manipulation, cruelty, and worst of all, I felt they used my vulnerability to get close to each other. Diego started saying the typical things, that he never wanted to hurt me, that things just happened, that he felt lonely. I hate that phrase. I felt lonely. Imagine saying that to a woman with postpartum depression, to a woman who had just given birth to his daughter. Natalia was crying too. She said she never planned to fall in love, that at first she only wanted to help. But honestly, how do you help someone while destroying their marriage behind their back? I will never understand that. Contaminated memories. The worst came later because I started remembering so many things, moments where they were probably already together, messages, excuses, looks. I even discovered that many times Natalia came over to help me, only to see Diego. That made me sick, because suddenly all my memories of my pregnancy were contaminated. Everything. The photos, the baby shower, the visits, everything. And honestly, I think that was the most painful part, feeling like they ruined one of the most important stages of my life. Later, I discovered something even worse. A lot of people suspected it, co-workers, even a friend of Natalia's, and nobody told me anything. Nobody. That completely destroyed my trust in other people, because I felt humiliated, as if the whole world had seen it except for me, rebuilding from the ground up. Currently, Diego and I are separated, and honestly, I am still trying to rebuild myself emotionally, because discovering something like that during the postpartum period destroys you psychologically. You already feel insecure, tired, and vulnerable, and then discovering that the person who was helping you was betraying you honestly breaks something very deep inside. The worst part is that for a very long time I compared myself to Natalia, with her body, with her personality, with her energy, because while I was exhausted taking care of a baby, she seemed perfect, and honestly, that heavily destroyed my self-esteem. My therapist told me something that I am still trying to understand. She told me, their betrayal speaks about them, not about your worth. But honestly, there are still days where it's hard to believe it. Because when someone cheats on you during your most vulnerable stage, it's impossible not to ask yourself what you did wrong, even if rationally you know it wasn't your fault. Currently, Natalia and Diego are still together. Yes, after destroying my life, they are still together. And honestly, I don't know what to think about that. Part of me wants to hate them, and another part simply wants to forget them completely. But there are nights where I still wake up thinking about the image of them kissing in my kitchen, and honestly, I feel like I am never going to forget that scene. Thank you for reading me. Carolina. Wow. Honestly, this story left me completely destroyed. Because here we are not just talking about an infidelity. We are talking about betraying a woman during probably the most vulnerable stage of her life. And honestly, I think that makes this story so much more cruel. Personally, there is something that heavily impacted me: Natalia's role. Because honestly, one thing is a random affair, but a completely different thing is getting close emotionally to a vulnerable woman, gaining her trust, helping her, while having a relationship with her husband. That honestly strikes me as extremely disturbing. And I want to say something very clearly. Postpartum depression and emotional exhaustion after a pregnancy can heavily destroy your self-esteem. Discovering a betrayal like that at that exact moment, honestly, must break you psychologically. I also want to talk about something important: vulnerability. Because so many times the most manipulative people appear precisely when someone is at their weakest emotionally. And honestly, I think that is completely what happened here. Another thing that left me thinking a lot is the amount of contaminated memories. Because now Carolina associates her pregnancy, her baby, her recovery with a betrayal. That is extremely painful. And honestly, I think a lot of people underestimate how much psychological damage and infidelity can cause during vulnerable moments. Now I want to ask you all a tough question. Who do you think betrayed Carolina more? Diego or Natalia? Because honestly, this is one of those stories where the betrayal comes from multiple angles at the exact same time. And another complicated question: do you think Natalia really wanted to help at the beginning? Or do you think there were other intentions from the start? Because honestly, that completely changes how the whole story is perceived. I also want to touch upon another important topic: the guilt. Because so many women, after an infidelity during pregnancy or postpartum, start blaming themselves for their body, for the fatigue, for not being enough. And honestly, I want to make something very clear. Nothing justifies a betrayal like this. Nothing. Now, I want to read your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of this story? Could you ever forgive something like this? Do you think a fake friendship hurts even more than an infidelity? And the toughest question of all, what destroys you more emotionally? The betrayal of your partner? Or discovering that the person who comforted you while you cried was part of the deception? I'll read your responses in the comments. And if you have stories you want to share anonymously, feel free to send them in. Because honestly, some of the worst betrayals come disguised as support and affection.